If you have an e-com brand and your idea of CRO is testing shipping banners, risk reversals, and offer structures, you're probably leaving the biggest lever untouched. And not because those things don't matter, they do to some degree, but they only help to convert the people who have already decided that they want your product in the first place. They reduce friction, they do not create desire. And if someone doesn't want what you're selling in the first place, they don't care about free returns, faster delivery, or buy one, get one free. You can't friction reduce your way out of weak positioning. So the real upside in CRO isn't squeezing an extra 5% out of the people who are already ready to buy. It's converting the much larger group of people who are unsure if they even want your product or not in the first place. And that comes down to messaging, persona building, and brand, not delivery terms or offer structure. So we built messaging driven CRO systems like this for over 50 7-figure ecom brands, and I've scaled my own brand to 7 figures using the same thinking. So this isn't theory, it's how we structure sites, product pages, and ads in practice. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to build a messaging framework that speaks directly to what your customer wants and the problems they have, a design system so your brand feels cohesive and consistent, and show you how to implement those things in practice. So let's get into it. So your idea of what you think CRO is probably wrong. Like when people think of CRO, the first things that come to mind is like changing a button color and communicating shipping terms, risk reversals, country specific delivery info, and availability indicators, stuff like that. And it's not that those things don't matter. It's just they're around 20% of what actually gets someone to place an order, because all those things are the terms of placing an order. So it's not about why they should buy the product in the first place. It's just about reducing friction when they decide they want it, you know. But it doesn't, those things don't create desire for the product, you know. So if someone doesn't want what you have to sell in the first place, they don't care how long they have to return it. They don't care if they buy two, they'll get one free. They don't care how quickly they have it. They don't, if someone doesn't want what you have, even if they place an order and it would arrive at their door in an hour, they still wouldn't buy it, you know. So you're only increasing conversions for around 20% of people, less than that, like even a smaller percentage of that, of the people who have already decided that they want the thing. And there's a much larger bucket of people who are unsure if they have a desire for the product in the first place. And that's by targeting that, by creating desire for the product, by communicating the benefits that it'll give your customer, by communicating the problems it'll solve, why it's different to other options on the market, stuff like that. That's what's going to get you the most results when you're trying to do CRO, you know. But like most agencies, they focus on that service level stuff because it's easy and it doesn't require deep research and understanding of your customer. And if you run meta ads, you know this already, like the best way to structure your meta ads is to understand your customer, break down their persona, and communicate their pain points, benefits, and stuff like that. And then you will talk about stuff like risk reversals and social proof, but it's secondary to getting people to want the product in the first place. So when you're going to optimize your website, this is the way you should do it. Okay, so I'm going to run through the way we do it. We have an agency, we do messaging / brand based CRO. We've worked over 50 ecom brands. I've scaled my own ecom brand to 7 figures. And yeah, this is the way you should do it. So this stuff will also help when you're trying to write ads and stuff like that. So it's a really useful exercise to do. So basically, if you want to hit on strong messaging, creating desire for your product, strong brand, premium perception, long-term LTV, being able to scale past what's possible with just paid ads, then there's kind of two building blocks that you want to use when you're approaching building your website. So the first one is the messaging. The second one is the design. So the first thing you should do before you write any copy, before you touch anything, is create a detailed persona of who you're selling to. And maybe it's just one person, maybe it's multiple personas. If again, like if you're doing over 7 figures, you're going to know this from your ads already. If you aren't, this will help you get there. So you want to fill in, do you have separate personas? Who are they? What are their roles and lifestyles? And like, this isn't really what the persona build is about. Like, it's worth putting down who they are and their role and their lifestyle. But what really matters is, what do they actually want, you know, and what problems do they have? What are their frustrations, you know? So it's more their current pain points and the outcomes that they want, you know? So you want to fill that in first. You can create Notion docs to do all this stuff, and then you want to build out a messaging framework. Okay, so the first thing you can do, and you want to base all of this based on actual data. You don't want to guess. If you're early, maybe you'll have to do that, but ideally you want to base everything around data. So the first thing you should do is go through your ads manager. What are the best performing ad angles? What's resonating with people? What's the best headlines and the hooks that work? And then the next thing you can do is send out customer surveys or look at past ones that you have, and what are the things that people say they care about the most when they're buying from you. Another thing is do a deep dive on all of your reviews, because something that's really important is mirroring the language back to people of what they care about. So you want to describe exactly the things they care about, exactly the frustrations they have in the exact kind of language that they use. And like a really useful type of review to look for is one that says, that describes the hesitation, but then they did it anyway. So for example, I thought it was a little bit expensive, but then I bought it and it was worth it. I wasn't sure if it would work, but then I bought it and it did. So stuff like that. People are telling you what made them almost not buy, and then they did it anyway. So those are the kind of objections that you need to attack when you're building out your sections and stuff like that. And a really good thing for your surveys, if you do want to send one out as well, is ask people, was there anything that made you almost not buy, and list out 5 or 6 options, and then give an option for them to actually add text as well, because that's one of the main things you're trying to do, is overcome objections. Then if you have run A/B tests before, you can put all your learnings down in there. And then customer happiness trigger. So like the goal of building out this messaging framework is you want to condense all of the data that you have about people into short, tight, punchy bullet points, sentences that are website ready, that you can then use to build out your website. So at the end of this, we want to have sentences that describe the things that make your customers happy, objections they have, questions. That's another thing you can do. What are the most common customer service questions people ask? So your Instagram DMs, your email support, what do people ask that they're concerned about? Because you have to remember, when someone asks a question through customer support or Instagram, there's probably another 50 who had that exact question and they didn't ask, they just bounced. So it's very important that you attack all of the questions and objections on page. Dream outcome. So this one is very important, because there's a distinction that needs to be made between what someone gets from using your product and what the feature of the product is. So like the features of your product are only a mechanism for delivering the outcome. So you need to make sure that you're not talking about features. Like if it's clothing, you're not talking about the weight of the cotton and stuff like that. You're talking about luxury feel. Or let's say if there was, I don't know, clothing probably isn't the best example, but like let's say if there was a breathable material, you want to say something about maybe that you don't sweat in it or something like that, and you don't want to describe the material itself. Like you can talk about features, but features are, I'll show you some examples of this in a second so it makes more sense, but features should be described as mechanisms for delivering the benefits that you're describing. So you should describe the benefit first and then use the feature to describe how the benefit is delivered, So like that is the proof that you can deliver the benefit. So that's all a feature should be used. It shouldn't be framed as this is what you get, because it's not. Then problems. So like problems are extremely important as well. But one thing you need to be aware of is if you want to build like a high-end premium brand, then like you're probably aware of, like, you see them cheap looking advertorials that are like the 5 hidden facts that kill X, and a real like alarmist type of language, so you want to avoid that and don't make these kind of catastrophic claims, because it cheapens your brand. It might get you some sales over the short term, but if you're trying to build something enduring, then you need to be subtle about the way you talk about problems, and don't be alarmist and fear mongering, and we worked with a brand who have a product that is very problem solving around something that's kind of catastrophic, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So we'll get into that after. Then your competitive edge. So this is really important. So you need to be able to stop people in their tracks and say, okay, if I want what this company is selling, I can't get it elsewhere, So that's your differentiator. So like you want to stop people from shopping around and just buy from you. And then I won't get into all of this, but then we're pretty much just further refining all of the different pieces of copy that we have until we're left with something like this. So snappy one-liners. You should spend a lot of time on doing this. Rank them by persuasion. Make sure you get your messaging correct, because this is like the most important part. So building block number 2 is your design system. So this is everything about the way your brand will look, so you can create a consistent, premium, cohesive brand experience end to end. You don't necessarily need to go this deep. This is a new e-com brand we're working on ourselves, so we'll document all of the colors that we're going to use, the artistic direction, typography, space and all that kind of stuff, and then we're sketching some logos. But again, like you don't need to go this deep so early, but you should put something together so everything looks consistent. So you can even just make a simple style guide that looks like this, where you document the logos, the colors, the fonts, button rounding, spacing, and then put together some previews. So you can do this with your designer, and basically you just want to have a cohesive design system so everything looks consistent, and this will help with your emails, your website, and your statics and stuff as well. So once you have those two things done, then the next thing is to go ahead and build out the site. So I'm going to show you an example of a site that we worked on, so you can see how all this stuff ties together. So this is a brand that sells a rugby headguard, and this is one where the messaging was extremely important. So basically what we realized, like before we worked with this brand, all of their messaging was tied around like this stuff, like helps reduce impact to the head by up to 75% and stuff like that. But that's a feature. So like once we actually sent out the surveys, we did some research, what we found was 90% of the people who bought this product, they were actually parents buying the headguard for their children because they were concerned they were going to get a concussion when they were playing rugby. So what we were thinking of doing for this one was having something like we did put it in here, like peace of mind, having something framed around peace of mind, because that is the outcome. But they kind of wanted a balance where it felt like an aspirational brand. Like that's something you have to remember with CRO as well, is that there is a balance between performance and brand, and you should decide where you want to go with that, because you could go, like if you went 100% conversion, you could do that. You could make it really ugly. You could plaster banners everywhere, free shipping, 20% off, massive sale. And that would work over the short term, but over the long term, it's going to harm your brand. It's going to harm LTV, and it's just going to make you look cheap and like a drop shipping brand, and those ones don't stick around. So you need to decide, what balance do you want to have between conversion and brand. If you're running a drop shipping store and you're just in it for the long run, maybe you'll want to do a very cheap, very alarmist language that says, don't get a concussion and stuff like that. But if you want to build a premium high-end brand, maybe you can sell it one day, that's going to last years, that people are going to talk about, that people respect and trust, then you're going to want to find some sort of balance between brand and conversion. I'll show you one. This is an econ brand of my own that's much more this is probably like, I don't know, 70% brand, 30% conversion. So like a much fluffier kind of headline here, where trends start. Like that's nowhere near as outcome driven as this one is, because this is a problem solving product. So like we're describing two very clear outcomes, because one thing is people, like there's a lot of features built into this head guard. Like it's very easy to hear and it's very comfortable and stuff like that. So people it's not going to harm how they play, but it will also protect what's priceless, which is obviously not getting a brain injury. So this one is much more specific and matter of fact, because it's a more problem solving product. Whereas for this one, this is just a website that sells other brands of clothes, so it's not so specific in that it exists to solve a very specific problem. So you want to go a little bit more aspirational with this one, and there's no hard rule. You kind of need to figure out this stuff for yourself and where you want your brand to sit. you know. So like all this stuff is pretty obvious, there's nothing special here, but authority endorsement works really well. It's pretty basic. So they have some pro players who use their head guard. Usually we go with risk reversal and stuff in here, but like they were a client of ours, this is what they wanted, so that's fair enough. So this is the product form area, obviously a single SKU store. So yeah, we just went straight into the product form section after the hero. So the testimonial, like this was one of the best tests that we actually ran on this one. So here's the thing about adding features like this. Like the takeaway from this should not be, oh, they used a testimonial in this position, I'm just going to do that too. What actually matters is like, what is the content of the testimonial? So it's 149 euros. That's really expensive for a head guard. Like all of the other options are like 30 or 40 euros. So like the main objection is price. Like that's what we discovered when we done our research and stuff like that, looked at the review surveys and stuff. So this is a real testimonial, and you should use real ones, by the way. Be honest in your copy, but you get what you pay for, and we would not use any other brand. What price? Safety. So like this is basically saying it's worth the price, and like most importantly, this part, what price? Safety. Like you can't put a price on safety, and like that's also an angle that we lean into here. Protect what's priceless. Like if your kid gets a concussion, like how much would you pay to reverse that? So again, like it's a very alarmist and serious topic, but notice that the copy is quite calm. Like we're not saying your kid could get a concussion, you need to spend money on this, because that makes it cheap, that ruins brand. Maybe it improves conversion, but it ruins your brand, you know. And then like these are just some like high end stuff. This is much more brand based stuff, you know. It doesn't really help a conversion that much, but it does help with brand, and there is a real benefit to brand. So now your product page images are like one of the most important things. So I'll just get into a little bit about how we structure these and the thinking behind them. So basically, first card, outcomes only, no features. At this point, people don't care about what the product is. They only care about what the product is in the terms of, do they believe that it's going to do what I want it to do? You know, so what they want is peace of mind when their kids play. Like that's something people constantly talked about in the reviews. You know, when we read through them, they were all saying that, and it's like, I finally have peace of mind. It's well worth the money for peace of mind, so on. So this is exactly what people said they cared about. You know, so peace of mind every time they play. And you'll notice nothing about the product. It doesn't say anything about the features, nothing like that. Confidence, they're protected even in tough tackles. No more second guessing. Their safety, support their passion without fear. Again, we didn't come up with this ourselves. It's based on research, all of it. Now, you can't just talk about the outcomes because people have to understand how it actually works. You know, so like obviously you'll say, well, this would be great, but like, how are you going to do that? So then you need your unique mechanism supporting technology. So this is describing how the outcome is delivered, you know, and notice that we're still leading with a benefit, reduced impact, proven protection with the Fentex technology. This is a really useful thing to know as well. And you see this little TM thing here and the coined term. You don't need to register a name or something like that, or pay to have it registered to use that TM. You can just coin a term and then you can use that TM, and then that's your technology. You know, so do that. Come up with a name. It can be like a combination of different ingredients. It can be a certain thing that you created. Um, there's different ways of doing it, you know, but you need to figure out, because like another thing that this does is it makes the claim of the outcome believable, and it also differentiates you. So it makes people think, okay, if I want what they have, I cannot get it elsewhere because they have this technology that only they have, you know. And notice, so we've leaded with the technology. We're still talking about benefits and as the main heading, you know, so like delivers peace of mind, not just padding, reduces force, responds to real world collisions. And then we get a little bit more detail into the mechanisms here. So clinically tested and disperses up to 75% of G-force, so on and so forth. Then reviews. So like people, it seems kind of counterintuitive to add reviews up here because people think, oh, well, they usually go at the bottom. I'd never see reviews in a product page image carousel. But the thing is, if you have a look at your heat maps, if you use like Clarity or something like that, you'll see 80% of people, this is a homepage now, but like on a product page, 80% of people, all they will ever see is this. They will never scroll at all. So people put a lot of time into building out like a really detailed landing page, but they don't give much thought at all to how they structure the product page images. And you'll also see that this is like the most interacted with section on the entire website is the image carousel. So you need to fit like your entire sales sequence inside the carousel. And the great part about it is it's easy, you know, you don't need the code. You can whip them up in Canva or Figma or whatever. So spend some time getting that right. So anyways, the reviews. So like we have the power here to kind of pick our own review. So like something you'll hear us talking about a lot is that it's not about the like reviews themselves don't get people to convert. It's what people say in those reviews. Because like if someone like scrolls to the bottom and they're looking for reviews, what they're actually looking for is, can someone else confirm that this will do the thing that I want it to do? So when you're picking the reviews, you need to be really careful about them, and you need to go back to your messaging framework and say which reviews describe the things that people said they care about, you know, and then use those exact reviews. Because if you just pick one random ones, it's not going to help you. You know, next thing is comparison. So this one is obviously very important for kind of making sure people don't go looking elsewhere. You know, you want to make sure, especially if you're in a saturated market, that people don't think, oh, well, I could just go to someone else who's cheaper or something like that, you know. And then next one, authority endorsement. This one is really important. So if you do have it, not all brands do, but if you can get a trusted authority to endorse your product and say that it works, that works extremely well. People are very antsy about trust at the moment, so this works. Definitely do that, and if you can. And then use cases. So like the goal of this one is to say, like, because a lot of people will be thinking, oh, that sounds great, but like, is it for me? Like in this case, like it's expensive. Is it really for beginners? Is it really for like my son who's 14, or is it just for pros? So you want to trigger the like, that's me moment, you know, like I'm in that situation. The product was made for me. So yeah, and then this is another unique mechanism section. This is animated. This is much more kind of brand focused, you know. So this just kind of gives that premium feel and helps you kind of occupy space in people's head, you know. So you want to come you want to become synonymous with your category. Like that's what like Coca-Cola do through branding. When you think of, if you said cola, what's like, if you thought cola drink, you're not going to think anything else except Coca-Cola. They own that category, and that's because of strong branding. So like that's what all this stuff does, is it allows you to occupy space in people's heads. You know. So yeah, I think I'll leave this here. It's after been 19 minutes already, which is crazy. But hopefully that gave you some insight into what you can, like, what the real needle mover is for CRO. And like honestly, if you're a big 7-figure founder, and like this is how you treat your ads pretty much. To break down personas, to look at angles and stuff like that. It's the same with the website. That's mostly what gets results. It's not about shipping risk averse terms of offer. It's about what the offer does for people themselves. So yeah, hopefully you got some value from this. By the way, we do have an agency that does brand building CRO. We do testing, full builds, all that kind of stuff. If you do want to check us out, you can book a call with myself. There's a link in the bio. If not, no worries. You should subscribe. We're going to be posting lots of videos like this. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks.